Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat Podcast. In this edition, we'll be talking about Tottenham's defeat at the Allianz Arena, Bayern Munich 4, Tottenham Hotspur 0. Now, if you are watching on YouTube, Facebook or X, please do get involved. Let us know how you are feeling right now as a Tottenham Hotspur fan. Of course, this is the first defeat for Thomas Frank as Tottenham Hotspur boss. Harry Kane put Bayern Munich 1-0 up after 12 minutes. Coman made it 2-0 after 61 minutes. Cole made it 3-0 after 74 minutes. And then Kusi Asar made it 4-0 after 80 minutes. And if I'm completely honest, it could have been 10, it could have been 12, it could have been an absolute hatful. Bayern Munich absolutely dominated this game. And in my opinion, this is a wake-up call for the board to go out in the next couple of weeks and sign some real quality in this transfer window. But we, of course, will get into all of it. But it's very important to us that you do get involved and let us know how you are feeling right now. Now, I'm going to go straight to the panel and introduce them. We've got Lee, the Dorset Spur, back with us, channel regular. Lee, we'll talk about the football in a minute, but how are you?
Mate, I'm all right. I'm living the dream, living the Tottenham dream, as we say. So I'm sure we'll get into it.
We've been here before many times, Lee. Yes, we'll get through it again. We've also got Gareth McGuiness with us, all the way from Ireland. Gareth, how are you?
Bamboozled. That's one way to put it. I might unpack my suitcase for the Super Cup next week, if that's what we're going to be putting up with. But in all seriousness, it's great to be back on, Chris. Feeling good and all ready for a therapy show.
And we've also got Richard Whitehead, MBE, of course, channel regular, back with us. Richard has been running around the world, literally running around the world, everywhere. Rich, how are you?
Yeah, I've nearly collected as many air miles as you, mate, as well. So, yeah, really good. Yeah, it's great to be on with you guys, and I'm sure we'll kind of get into the future of the club and what we expect over the next couple of weeks in the transfer market, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, before we start the show officially and get the thoughts of the panel on today's game, let's go through the match facts and stats. Now, passes, Bayern Munich 482 to Tottenham's 351. Passing accuracy, Bayern Munich 88% to Tottenham's 87%. Possession in the game, Bayern Munich 58%, Tottenham's 42%. Shots, Bayern Munich a staggering 26 to Tottenham's 6. Shots on target, Bayern Munich had 8 to Tottenham's 3. Corners, Bayern had 6 to Tottenham's 3. Fouls suffered, Bayern Munich 8, Tottenham 11. And offsides, Bayern Munich 1, Tottenham Hotspur 2. Rich, I want to start the show with you this evening. We haven't had you on for a fair few weeks because you have been darting around here, there, and everywhere. So give us your thoughts. Give us your thoughts on pre-season so far, because of course up to this point we were unbeaten. I feel like it's very fair to say that most of the fan base have been worried about the transfer window, because we have heard many times, and they've been very aligned. Vinay Venkatesham, Johan Langer, Thomas Frank, Daniel Levy, they've all come out and said we want to be fighting on all fronts for the 2025-2026 season. We've expected a fairly decent window. Of course, the Morgan Gibbs-White deal at the time, we were all excited about it, thinking if that one does get over the line, it would be a real statement signing for the football club. Nothing really has happened since then. Whether it will happen in the next couple of weeks, but I feel like it's very fair to say that this squad, this team, needs real injection of experience and real quality and real depth. But
Yeah,
what did you make of today's game?
Yeah, for sure. I think obviously when the Morgan Gibbs-White proposed transfer was first kind of put to air, there was real momentum there with obviously the signings. But I think the air was definitely let out of the balloon with all that kind of wasted time regarding that transfer. And I think even down to some of the players, that they look like they need that injection of new blood. And Polina has obviously come in now, and I think that will definitely help. He's only just come into the squad, and obviously with travel and with obviously some of the players' fatigue, that's not obviously helped with this result. But I think with what we're hearing from the hierarchy of the club, obviously the recent interview with Levy and Gary Neville, that was really interesting listening to him, and obviously what his methodology around some of the decisions he's made over the last couple of years, but also where he sees the club. It's really interesting. And somebody that's been watching over the last couple of weeks, I've been really wanting the club to not necessarily just throw money at players, but really look to have some real direction with the signings that we bring in. And obviously, the signing that we have really kind of benefited from, obviously from West Ham, Kudus is really coming in, obviously shone within the team. But a lot of the players, really, I'm looking at the depth. And obviously with the situation with Maddison now, a player like that obviously gets injured with Kulusevski out as well, kind of really leaves a massive hole creatively within the side. And looking today, I know obviously the first half, we looked at the referee played a big part in some of the decisions, but we were below par in lots of areas, and I think energy-wise looked very flat.
Rich, does that surprise you at this stage? Because, of course, in 6 days' time, we're playing the Champions League winners, PSG.
Yeah, and I think you obviously listened to Thomas Frank's interview after the game. He obviously, some of his questions have been answered regarding squad size, regarding ability, regarding maybe back-to-back games. I think some of the players after the game against Arsenal couldn't continue that momentum, couldn't have the real energy moving forwards into other games. I think obviously from last year and from the euphoria of obviously winning the cup, you would expect some kind of momentum from the club and players going into the pre-season, but it is pre-season, and we do know that experimentation does go off within these within these environments. But I think with the Arsenal game, we went to obviously win the game. It wasn't to try new things. I think today I was just not sure what I saw. I saw him sit back when we didn't have the ball. And are we going to do that? Because obviously he's done that historically with obviously Brentford. And I think if we do that, have we got the players to be able to sustain that over large periods? Obviously we did against Man United in the final with Ange Postecoglou, playing a slightly different system. But we need to have reinforcements. Some of the players, I'm not sure how they're going to cope with the Wednesday, Sunday games next season. And also, have we got the depth? Obviously, Thomas Frank's clearly shown that some of the younger players that we've got that have been introduced in pre-season are going out on loan. So he doesn't feel that they're quite ready yet. But he needs to kind of have the reinforcements to we just haven't got the players. Like, so obviously Maddison's injured, and then obviously Sonny going. Then who do we have that comes in to give us that quality? You look at the kind of the finishing capacity of somebody like Sonny. Who have we got that we've got? We need a proven finisher. We need somebody with that creative spark, and we haven't got that in the squad. You take Sonny out of the squad. And yes, we talk about obviously how he's maybe over the last 18 months his form has declined slightly. I agree, but who have we seen as a replacement for Sonny in the squad? I'm not seeing that's happened at all.
Lee, let's come to you. I know you probably have a lot to say about tonight's game and particularly the result as well, because as I mentioned right at the start, this could have been so many more goals. Harry Kane, of course, missed a penalty. In that final third, they had so many opportunities that they missed. Vicario, of course, made a couple of great saves as well. This could have easily been 10. What do you take away from pre-season, particularly tonight's match?
I think you have to. Should I try and put a positive spin? Should I try and be positive, Chris? Because I think ultimately, right, we've come up against a really good Bayern Munich side that started that game, right? Really strong, knew what they were about, And I thought initially we did fairly well. I thought defensively we worked really hard, and I thought they kind of pegged us back, and we didn't just fold straight away. Kane's first goal was clearly offside in my view, from what I saw of it. So lucky there. We were lucky that he didn't score the penalty, obviously. And the other 3 goals. I mean, generally speaking, you see really classy goals like that once in a game, and we had 3 in the game. There was a couple of defensive lapses in all of that, not closing down maybe, but the way they struck those, there's no way that the keeper was going to stop any of them. So, and it's our first kind of real test. I guess Man United, Newcastle was a good test. Arsenal, that's never a friendly anyway. So I guess I try to be a bit more positive about it in terms of this particular game. But as Rich says, this is all about the recruitment. Like this pre-season has been all about the recruitment and all about the momentum from the end of last season, winning a trophy, and then all the PR work that Daniel Levy's done with Venkatesham and all that, saying all the right things, but then not being able to back it up anywhere. And that's the real worry. And then we're now getting rid of all the youngsters. And we say youngsters, but some of these guys are older than players that we're keeping, like Bergvall and Gray. We're moving these lads out, presumably to make space to bolster this squad. But it just feels so quiet and so under the radar. None of us really know what's going on, who we're going for, what kind of players we're going for. But clearly, we have a massive gap in terms of our quality compared to top teams like Bayern Munich. Now, we ain't going to play teams like Bayern Munich week in and week out in the Premier League. There will be some weaker teams than that. But if you really, really want to challenge on four fronts, because that's why Postecoglou lost his job, then you can't just go into it with this group of players, this small group of players. It's just not going to happen. So I'm just really concerned about, how quickly we're going to step this up, because if we don't do something soon, we're going to run out of time, and then it'll be panic buyers, and then we'll end up with any old rubbish. And that's just not what we want. We need some proper, proven quality players in the right positions.
Lee, do you think that there is a clear plan in place in order to get the real quality players in before the 1st of September? Because we're hearing today that, coming from Fabrizio Romano, a very reliable journalist, if not the best one in the world on transfers, stating that Spurs did actually make a call to Jack Grealish's representatives about a possible move. It didn't go any further than that, but Spurs just inquired about his situation at this stage. And in the last hour or so, he's also said that on top of Tottenham's priority list is Chelsea forward Nicholas Jackson, available for around £80 million.
Have we lost Chris, have we?
I don't know. Am I still there? I don't know whether I lost Chris or whether it was me that went off.
We lost you there, Chris.
Lee, did you get the question about Jack Grealish? And apparently Spurs are now interested in Nicholas Jackson for around £80 million if Richarlison goes out the door. And there is a lot of talk about Spurs now needing to offload players like Bryan Hill and Manor Solomon. And there is even talk about Thomas Frank not wanting any more signings in the final third. And of course, Heung-min Son has just left. I don't want to put a negative spin on this whatsoever, but I tell you what, when we're only 6 days away from that Super Cup game, I would have thought that Spurs would have done a lot more in this transfer window at this point, being as well that we're going into the Premier League season against Burnley Saturday week.
Yeah, no, £80 million for Jackson just sounds absolutely crazy to me, and there's got to be better options out there than that for sure. Jack Grealish, I don't understand why we've never kind of talked about that. I know there's lots of Tottenham fans that are not interested in Grealish, but I really do feel that he is the sort of Tottenham player that you would, sort of player that would fit into Tottenham. He's the right sort of character and that. It's just whether he's had it too easy at City and kind of lost his edge. That'd be my only concern. And obviously, the money in terms of his wages, I think, would be a real issue. But someone like that would be, like, to me, makes absolute sense. I can't understand why we're leaving it so late to then have a conversation, unless there was someone else in the mix that has just dropped out the equation. And I can't believe it was only Morgan Gibbs-White, you know. I mean, the one that we've always talked about has been Eze, hasn't it? I mean, we've talked about him for probably the last 2 or 3 seasons. I mean, I'm not sure whether he would come to us, whether he's interested in coming to us. I know there's lots of talk about Arsenal for him and stuff. But surely the club has to have some sort of plan. And you just can't believe that they haven't. But it feels like they haven't, if you know what I mean. Like, in my mind, working for a big company like I do, I know we're always pre-planning for every event that's occurring, and lots and lots of work goes into that. I cannot believe that a Premier League football club the size of Tottenham, with the business model it's got, has not got clear plans and clear ideas about who they want, when they want them, and what they're prepared to pay for them. I can't believe that's not the case. But it feels like that is the case, if I'm being honest.
We'll come back to you on that point, Lee, about transfers. I'm sure this podcast will be quite dominated by transfers this evening. Gareth, let's get your thoughts on today's defeat against Bayern Munich. Are you surprised? Because I've got to admit, I spoke to a couple of Bayern Munich fans before the game and certainly during the game, because it was mixed. It was a mixed crowd today, no away end. So the Tottenham fans were just dotted in amongst the Bayern Munich supporters today at the Allianz Arena. And I actually said to a couple of them, when they were 2-0 up, 3-0 up, and then even 4-0 up, I said, what was your expectations of the game today? And they all looked at me, and they didn't mean it arrogantly at all. They went, to win. We knew that we were going to win today.
Well, we got an absolute football lesson. And sometimes football lessons can lead the interventions. And I mean, if that doesn't get people thinking of where we're at today, then I don't know what will. Like you say, 26 shots on goal, and this is a preseason. I mean, if this had been a competitive game, you know, Bayern Munich wouldn't have been bringing on the young kids. They would have had their full strength team out for a lot longer. You know what I mean? So it's a nightmare start with a goal, and Lee's right to say it, you know, VAR's in place is disallowed. But would it have made any difference in the game? Probably not. You know, and I don't want to be too critical of Polina, because this is not a dig at him. But Bayern Munich have just let us have one of their players on loan, and he's straight into our team. He can't get into the Bayern Munich team, and that's not to say that Polina is not a good player, but Bayern Munich just don't think he's good enough for them. You know, so is that where we're shopping? Are we shopping at clubs where, you know, you mentioned Nicholas Jackson there, you know, Chelsea don't seem to want him. Are we going there and taking, you know, we as well going to acquire Bitse at this rate, because we're going to take all the players that all these so-called top clubs aren't really interested in. When are we going to go out and buy a player where everyone sort of goes, everyone would want him? And Gibbs-White was that player, but obviously that's not happened. But Chris, there's just a real frustration. You can sense it on the podcast there from Lee and Richard and obviously yourself and probably me now. And there's a real frustration in the fan base. And it's hard to believe, Chris, that, you know, what was it, 3 months ago, we were all, you know, on cloud nine after winning the Europa League. You know, me and you were there. You know, I was so looking forward to the Super Cup next week. And look, I'm sure I will enjoy it. But, you know, you'd like to have been going there in good spirits. And I think today is probably a learning curve for Thomas Frank, a learning curve for the group that's there, and an even bigger learning curve for the board, because it's clear, you know, how many Spurs players would get into the Bayern Munich team, how many Spurs players would get into the Liverpool team, how many Spurs players would get into the Man City team, and so on and so forth. You know, Thomas Frank's not a magician. He can make changes. He can make us more competitive. He can make us better. Yeah, but he can't bridge a massive gap. He's not going to do it overnight. It's going to need time. But what we've seen today, Chris, we're going to see in the Champions League if this is the squad that we're going on with, because we're well short in a lot of areas in terms of quality. You know, we need to be signing players that come under this first team and instantly improve us. I think Polina is a steady Eddie. I think he'll definitely, he's definitely better than what we have. But is Polina going to elevate this project, elevate this team? It remains to be seen. He was a good player at Fulham, but it's concerning that he's gone to Bayern Munich, and after one season, they don't feel that he's good enough for that kind of level. Do they see him as a liability? He gives away a penalty today. He's a lot of yellow cards. Don't get me wrong, that's his game. He's going to make fouls. But this isn't a crucifixion of Polina. But when you're signing players, a number 6 was a real problem position for us, and we go out and sign a player unknown. I just don't think that's a good statement of a club. That's you wouldn't be going, well. The way I would look at it, it's like that's a typical Spurs signing, going out and getting a player that's 30 unknown and might do a job for a year. But the only excuse for that really should be that it frees up funds for our areas, and maybe we can look at Polina as well. He might do a job, but
I like Polina. I think he'd be good. I think he would be a very good player for us. I think obviously, like you say, obviously not a great play for Bayern Munich, maybe their system, but I think obviously how Thomas Frank will play, he will be a good player for us. I'm sure he will.
Yeah, no, I do think he'll make an impact, but it's just it's the type of signing that we're going for. Is like, why can we not go out and sign a proper number 6 that we're desperate to get, and we're going to pay whatever? And as I say, the only reason you can justify doing that is if you go out and sign a left winger of top quality, a striker of top quality. And you could just go, maybe the funds aren't there for number 6. Might be next year because we've addressed certain areas. But at the minute, it doesn't. We're coasting through this transfer window as if everything's okay. I mean, Chris, I would love to know what the brief is for Thomas Frank. We would all love to know because we know Simon Jordan's got a close relationship with Daniel Levy. He says on the radio the other day, he says he doesn't know for a fact, but he has it on decent level of authority that Thomas Frank's been told to qualify for the Champions League this season. And we heard the video with Gary Neville about Thomas Frank doesn't need to win the Premier League this season, but he needs to win quickly as possible. So I mean, if that is the case, and Thomas Frank's only going to get 18 months to 2 years, he's got absolutely no chance of succeeding if this transfer policy doesn't change. You can't. If the expectations are a top 10 finish, then obviously that's not going to be acceptable for the fans. But we're running this team like a top 10 club. Everyone around us seems to be spending a lot of money. I know Man United are a massive club, but they lose a final and they back their manager. They could have easily says, Ruben Amorim, you've come on, it's not worked out. We're going to change up and we're going to go a different way. Even though Amorim says he wanted to come in the summer, but maybe they feel they owe him it. But they go out and they sign 3 top quality players to come into the team. And now they're being linked with Believer, who Brighton are reluctant to sell, but will sell for a crazy amount of money. And look, I'm not saying we have to go out and spend 500 or 600 million and leave ourselves in a spot where the club's unstable. But we both know there's money there to be spent. And look, there's a lot of stuff about we're being crippled by, we haven't got enough sales, we haven't got enough money for certain players in the past. But Man United are constantly paying players off to go. They don't seem to have a problem with still spending the money. So, yes, commercially, they might be bigger than us. But there's a lot. Liverpool are spending a lot of money. Man City are. So, we're going to be left behind. And, there comes a point, sometimes you do have to roll the dice. You do have to take a chance on a player and give him maybe a bit more money than you want. Pay a club a bit more money than you think that player's worth, if you really want that player. And as it is, I think the fans are just crying out for a bit of ambition. Look, if we go out and sign Eze and we go out and sign, I'm not saying maybe Rodrigo's a bit far because maybe he would want to come to Spurs, but that level of player, and see if it doesn't work out, I don't think the fans are going to be critical of the board because at least they've had a go. They've tried, they've gone out and signed players that we've all sit here and says, top player, comes into a team, can make a difference. And if them players don't work, you have to look at one thing, the coach and the environment they're in. But the way we're going at the minute, Chris, it seems we're linked with an R player today. People say he's highly rated. I think it's Nico Paz. Don't really know much about him, but again, that just seems like a massive gamble on a player that, is he going to settle? Is he ready for the Champions League? If he was ready for the Champions League, he would be at Real Madrid, and not playing for Como. And that's my worry, that we're going to go down this route again of he might be a great player. He might be a great player in 2 years' time, and we've been all too familiar with these players, and half of them end up leaving on loan or leaving for peanuts, and we're back in the same situation again with a new manager who has been failed miserably. And look, we were all critical of Ange last year at times, but again, how many top players did he have access to? He had an injury crisis, and we're going into this season with a bit of a money crisis. Look, the James Maddison injury is a bit of a freak. But again, a top club is prepared for these situations. Like Lee says, a top business prepares for your worst case scenario. And it just seems there was no backup to Gibbs White. And we're, again, as it says, we're coasting through this window, Chris. And I'm extremely worried that I don't think we're going to get anyone on before PSG or Burnley. So it's going to be a mad rush going to that Man City game and maybe even the last few days. And look, very few signings on deadline days and the days leading up to it work out. The better teams. You look at Liverpool, every season, they have all their business done early. You never see Liverpool running around on transfer deadline day. And look, I know they don't always, last year they didn't spend that much. But the year before, all their business was done early in the window, and it was players like McAllister and Gravenberch that they tracked and done a lot of data on and come in. And they were settled and knew the system. And they brought in players already this summer who, look, we would bite our arm off for. So I think the way it's going, Chris, it's not looking good. I hate to come on here and be negative, but it's just so frustrating because I was on here about 3 weeks ago. I think it was after the domestic friendly games, and I says, I'd like to see players now come on for the tour. The tour's finished. The Bayern Munich game is over. Pre-season is over. The PSG game is not a pre-season game for any fan, and it won't be for the players, and it won't be for Thomas Frank. Everybody wants to win that game. It's a European trophy, and we're going on it massively underprepared, and we should have been able to take advantage of playing a PSG team. They're going to be lacking in sharpness, lacking in fitness, but we haven't seized that opportunity.
Rich, how much pressure do you think is on Thomas Frank to get the best out of some of these players rather than buy some players in transfer window? Because I know all of us fans will sit on here for hours upon hours saying about we need to go out and show real intent, ambition, etc., etc. We've spoken about this, for years now on this podcast about showing real ambition in transfer windows. And also, how far away do you think Spurs are from the likes of Bayern Munich? Because today, what I witnessed, every single time Bayern Munich were on the attack, and as Gareth rightly pointed out, they made, I think it was 8 or 9 changes in that second half, and they took their foot off the pedal. And like I said earlier, it could have been so much more. How much in terms of gap, in the quality, do you think there is?
Yeah, there's obviously a massive gap in quality. Also, that mindset. You look at even the first half of the game. They had 6 or 7 more gears. I think also you look how the players move, and obviously a lot of the players move in symmetry with other players, and I just saw a lot better cohesion between each of the players on the pitch within Bayern Munich. I think it's a little bit unfair to obviously look at Tottenham with Bayern Munich, but I think we probably need to compare ourselves with some of those kind of top 5, top 6 teams and how close we are to those. And obviously, as Gareth and Lee alluded to, I think we're being left behind. And yes, inevitably, there's only 11 players that play, so you can buy 16 players through the summer, but you can only play 11. But I think it's just buying better quality. You never, as a Spurs team, you wouldn't want to buy a player that was not very good or was poor. The expectation is that they're either a good player that fits into that first 11 or develops and comes into that team eventually. And I just feel that that we've said a lot of very interesting things from the board around after the cup triumph, about how it's liberated the club and it's fantastic. We want more of those moments. And then we've got a manager such as Thomas Frank, who personally wasn't somebody that I would have chose or wasn't really inspired by that choice. But then the chairman and the board are kind of really getting behind him and saying, look, there's expectation that we'll do something with Thomas, and we believe in Thomas, and he's obviously great at selling himself and his philosophy. But that's just words, isn't it? I think actions are like the Ange thing where he wins in the second season. We've not really heard that from Thomas Frank. It's more of a hearing from a third party around. Like obviously, we've heard from Jermaine Defoe about his training, and his training techniques are very good, and some world-class kind of coaching setup. And then obviously from the board around, he's a very intelligent guy that kind of gets a real framework of teams and how they work. Again, very interesting. But it's what has he got on his CV regarding winning? Maybe obviously a playoff win, but nothing to the heights that we expect as a Tottenham Hotspur fan and as Tottenham Hotspur team. Has he had any of those European experiences? No. If we have one of those European experiences, that would be his first. The same as FA Cup, the same as those kind of Premiership kind of opportunities. For me, I fear that kind of are the players being attracted to the club because of the manager? Obviously, Mohamed Kudus obviously said that he wants to come to Spurs. His heart was coming to Spurs. When I heard that from him, I was like, he had other opportunities to maybe go to Newcastle and other teams. Was that the start of other players thinking exactly the same? So in that case, does that then make me think that the board aren't ambitious enough to then back the manager with what he really needs? That's my kind of thought process at the moment, that all this kind of stuff that we're hearing in the media that's new, that hasn't been heard before from Levy and the board, is that all just like words without actions? We'll see, won't we? We'll see, obviously, in the near future if we do get players in. But we definitely need quality. We need world-class quality. We've lost a world-class player in Sonny. We've lost him. Now you look at the team. Yes, we have World Cup winner in the team. We have other players in the team that have been successful with a national team. Pelini is one of them as well with Portugal. But have we got that quality that can turn those games? Have we got that creative spark in the team? I think we need to really spend a lot of money, resource-wise, to give the manager the weapons that he needs to change games. Because if he's going to sit back like he clearly thought he was going to do today, and then hit the team on the break, he hasn't got the weapons at the moment.
Rich, when you talk about world-class players, what world-class players do Spurs have at the moment, and who is Tottenham's star player?
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, last season when you talk about those up-and-coming world-class players like Van der Ven, and for me, is like those kind of. Is Romero world-class? I'm not sure. He's won the World Cup, but I'm not sure he's world-class. I think he's erratic in some respects. Yes, I could not tell you now the world-class player we've got, and that's me being honest. I think we've got up-and-coming players that can make that difference, but I think obviously a lot of Spurs fans are looking for that spark in the team, that marquee signing that's going to be that person. And does Spurs, even though we won the cup that we did, attract that kind of player now?
Lee, who is Tottenham's star player at the moment? Now Son's gone.
I think you're probably looking in terms of who you would say is potentially world class. You're probably looking at, like Rich says, Van der Ven. I think in terms of the player that's going to get you off your seat for Tottenham at the moment, I think the only one who looks anything likely for that is Kudus. I think he's come in and started very, very well for us. But my issue with this is that we were miles away from anywhere last season in terms of quality of players. And yet we've seen Arsenal, Chelsea, Man United, Man City, Liverpool go out and spend massive money on, maybe 2, 3, 4 real quality players. And it's made that gulf even wider. So we can't even be talking in that same level Like competing with them is just, for me, it's just impossible as it stands. So you are stuck with mid-table, trying to battle out mid-table and break into Europe. I don't see us getting anywhere near top 4 as it stands. And that's how it feels about the ambition when they brought Thomas Frank in. I've got nothing against Thomas Frank. I think he's a good coach. But like I say, his CV's not particularly great at the moment, apart from doing a good job with a team that was, at the lower end of the table. Maybe that goes on. Maybe he does show what he's really got, because all the talk is about him developing players and good tactical awareness, all that stuff that Ange didn't have. And that's all we needed. We got good players, but what we needed was them players put in the right positions and played correctly and all the rest of it. I'm not sure that's the case. I still think a good coach needs good players to work with. Mm-hmm. And when your starting point is so far away from the pack, you've got such a long distance to follow. Now, I'm not expecting miracles this season, but what we've got to do is we've got to put at least 3 top quality players into this side this season. You've got to. You can't ignore it. And I know Gareth was talking about Polinia being, maybe it's a stopgap, and why are we loaning players? We need to go out and get the right players. Is it because we haven't got the cash flow? We may have the ability, but have we got the cash flow to do it? And that's why we're looking at loans and stuff to save the money for those big signings to come in. Like I say, I'm trying to be positive, right? I'm trying to think there's got to be a plan, right? So is there a plan that we're taking this loan now because we've got a big plan for bringing in other players? Because we cannot sit here with just Kudus coming in. That cannot be it. I would say we are so far away. It's just a real worry. And I think we're in for a tough season, playing in the Champions League, and then trying to compete in any kind of cups. And I can feel the fan base getting very disillusioned very quickly if things don't improve in terms of how we play, how many games we win, and so on and so forth.
Let me ask you a quick one, Lee. So at this current point, Heung-min Son's gone out the door to Los Angeles. As you mentioned, Mohamed Kudus has come in. There have been a couple of other signings, of course, as well. I know some fans don't count the signings of Matisse Tell. They say, well, he was here last season. Same with Kevin Danso. And, of course, we've got Coach Takai come in as well. Are we stronger? Are we weaker? Or are we the same?
To me, it still feels that we're weaker, because you cannot discount the fact that Kevin Danso and Matisse Tell were part of that squad last season, right? So you can't ignore that. And then you're losing players like Maddison is now pretty much out for the season, right? So he's gone. You've got Kulusevski who's out, injured. You've got Son who's moved on. You've got Mikey Moore, who we used a fair bit last season, moved on. Your other players that are supposedly coming through the academy are all disappearing off to kind of different clubs and stuff. So it just feels like we're leaving ourselves very, very short indeed. And like I say, even Kota Takai coming in, the guy's come in and now he's out with plantar fasciitis in his foot. And I didn't even realise you could get that as an injury. I thought that was something you got when you're a postman, you do too many deliveries. I didn't realise it was going to be like that. I mean, the guy's come in and he's straight out injured. So you can't even count him. We don't know when he's going to come back. So for me, I still feel like we're weaker, maybe not as weak as it feels, but I think we are weaker than we were last season as it stands.
Jim and Stephen have said the same. And for me, that is the problem, because as all of you guys have already alluded to and have said, that, all of our rivals, all of the teams, even who finished mid-table, a couple of places above Spurs in the Premier League table last season, they've all strengthened. They've all gone out. And Lee, we've had many conversations about transfers before. I'm not one of these people saying that Spurs have got to go out and spend hundreds of millions of pounds. And I know Gareth saying about the loan deal for Polinia. I don't mind Spurs going out and getting loan deals done. No matter how we do deals, I don't mind that at all, as long as we buy or bring in or loan in the right players and they are the right deals and the team improves on the pitch. My big worry at the moment is the fact that we are only 6 days away from that Super Cup game. Saturday week we face Burnley. The Premier League season then starts. As we all know, the games then come thick and fast. League Cup, Champions League. Champions League. These Champions League games are starting to worry me a little bit. In terms of that gap. When I asked you earlier, Rich, about that gap. Bayern Munich to Tottenham. These are the types of teams that we'll be playing in the Champions League in that 8 games. Honestly, there is a lot to do at this football club. Gareth, who are our star players at the moment, and what are your expectations for this coming season? Because is it going to be the fact that Thomas Frank is going to have a lot of pressure in order to try and get the very best out of these players instead of signing some real quality?
I think the lads have said it there. The only real one you can think of is Van de Ven. But, I think we were chatting about this, the way star players get you off your seat. What's Mickey Van de Ven's biggest attribute? Probably a recovery run. It's no way. I took my girlfriend to the stadium and I just watched Mickey Van de Ven chasing somebody down. It's great to watch. But then you think, oh my God, he might pull his hamstring here. So you can't even enjoy that because you're worried on getting injured. But Spurs' star players have always been attacking players that get you off your seat. I can't remember. There's a debate whether Son still is world class, but he has a world class status. I think that's what the lads were pointing out. And he'll be a big loss in the dressing room because he was loved by everyone, loved by the fans. But you go back, when was the last time we haven't had a world class player? It's a long time. You think about sort of my generation.
Do you know what though, Gareth? Sorry to interrupt. A lot of Spurs fans in the last couple of years, whenever we lost games, a lot of them blamed Heung-min Son as the main reason for losing those games. And also a lot of people blamed Ange and all of the injuries. Now, we have got injuries galore at the moment. And of course, now Son has gone out the door. Now, people can argue about this, all they like. And I know there are a lot of people that wanted Heung-min Son to leave the football club. But in terms of a player in that final third who could really turn it on and what he has done in the past, I feel like Son still had it.
That's it. When Son steps on off that left, you think, he could put this in the top corner. You don't really sense that with Johnson or Odegaard or Dell. So there is a big difference there. You're not going to get that feeling in the stadium of one of those players doing something. As opposed to what Son could do, even if them goals were few and far between compared to what he did previous years. But
Gareth, I think sometimes we're very robotic with how we play as a team. Yeah, and I think that's where Son was different. He came inside or stretched the team and that's how I feel a lot of it. And that's why Richarlison, we need to move him on. He's so robotic.
I think that's the frustration, Richard, isn't it? If Spurs had signed a top-class left winger, people would have understood Son maybe leaving.
Yeah.
But the fact that we're starting to worry that Tell is Son's replacement, well, even a 33-year-old Son is a better player than Matisse Tell, and that's the worry that the fans have. But Chris, to answer your question, expectations. Look, we should be looking forward to the Super Cup next week. There's fans dreading it, because they think if PSG turn up, we could have our pants pulled down. The only thing that might be in our favour is the PSG had that bit of a break after the Club World Cup. They probably won't be in peak form. As opposed to maybe Bayern Munich today, who are getting ready for a new season and have been training. They didn't go as far in the Club World Cup. PSG, I believe, had a 3-week break, so they may not be in peak condition. Can we take advantage of that? But, it's the same feeling for the Champions League. When we won that, we won the Europa League against Man United. Obviously, we were delighted with the trophy, but we were thinking, do you know what? We've got a golden ticket here. Like a Willy Wonka chocolate bar. We've got a golden ticket under the Champions League. I think we knew how fortunate we were because of the league form. But obviously, we credit this. We won that competition. But, a lot of people didn't agree that we should get into it, because how could you get into it for finishing 17th? But, the rules are the rules. But everyone was looking forward to that, going Champions League back at the stadium next year. But everyone's starting to worry now about what if we meet a Barcelona? What if we meet a PSG? What are they going to do to us? And that really shouldn't be the feeling. We're not this is a massive football club. I keep saying it every day morning. This is a massive football club with massive potential. And the fans just want to see ambition. And, we can all accept defeats. We can all accept, missing out on certain things. But it just feels like it happens all too often. And that moment in Bilbao where we won, it was a celebration, but it was also a moment of relief that we could stop. That Spur. Chris, you've been saying it for so long, 17 long years, and before that it was 16, 15, and it became embarrassing for us as a fan base because we were bantered. But that feeling of winning, it was great, but it was almost that relief as well that we could put that to bed for at least a few years. But if we don't act on this moment, you can forget about Champions League football for a long time at the club. It'll be then we'll be sitting here in 5 years' time. Well, it's been 5 years since we've won a trophy, and before you know it, that goes to 10, 15, and we're back to square one. So, look, I've heard murmurs already that some fans are already thinking about a protest at the Burnley game. I mean, if that doesn't tell you all that's wrong with the club, that in the opening day of the season, there's certain fans thinking about protesting against the ownership, that tells you everything. And if the PSG game goes wrong and we do get our pants pulled down and Burnley shock us in the opening day, what's the atmosphere not going to be like at the end of the game in the Burnley after Burnley? So and you should be going on to every season. Every club should go on to every season in a positive mood. The fans should go on dreaming of what could be possible, but not dreading it the way we are at the moment, because I think everyone can see it that we've been left so short. Yes, there's been injuries that haven't helped, but it's still not an excuse for the situation that we should be angry on this season. We should not be going on the. For me, this is the biggest game of our season next week because, let's be honest, it's our most realistic chance of a trophy. We're on. It's a one-off game. We're in a final. Not every club can play in a final every season, so it would be a great way to start the season, to get a trophy, and really use that as kind of like a springboard to kick on. With a Burnley game, the atmosphere will be rocking inside the stadium if we were to beat PSG. But the reality is that very little fans will expect anything now because the board have left the manager short. And everyone's got, like you said there, Chris. People were blaming Ainge, people were blaming Son, and before that, our managers were blamed. But I can't sit here honestly and criticise Thomas Frank if we don't beat PSG, and I can't sit here and criticise him if we don't make top 4, top 5, top 6, because the reality is there's nothing about that Spurs squad that should be anywhere near the top 6. That's a mid-table squad at best.
We should. To be honest with you, after winning the trophy and the expectation, I mean that parade, I've never seen a parade like it. Right, for that sort of thing, right? You would. All your emotion, your joy, if that's not inspiring the board and the team and everything to go forward, I don't know what will, right? I don't know what will, right? So for me, my expectations were sky high at this point. I'm thinking, that's it. Season 3 is going to be better. Maybe we can go on, get the FA Cup and kind of keep this. Now, sack the manager, fine. You bring in a new manager, you start talking about all these other opportunities and all the rest of it, and what we really want. That's not matched by anything we've seen. So all of a sudden, I've gone from being up here to down here, predicting a loss against Burnley, getting absolutely pants pulled down against PSG. The world's going to end, and we're going to have protests outside the stadium and all the rest of it. And like Gareth said, is it a case of, well, they've had a trophy now, so they've gone 17 years and they got on with it. It didn't cause us a problem. Maybe they can go another 17 years and we'll just plod on. Because that's, like, for me, my view was, we win this trophy now, that should be the springboard, because Champions League is going to give you the money, right? So now there's no excuse. You've won the trophy. You're into the competition that you say you really need us to be in. You've got the game-changing facilities, best stadium in the world, all that nonsense. You should be able to acquire these players.
Well, Lee, that's it, right?
Clearly, that's not the case, is it? That's not the case, is it?
That's it, right? If we don't kick on this summer and spend and go out and attract top players after winning,
when will we?
After getting into the Champions League, exactly. When are we going to do it? So you can forget about, we're going to do it next. We may as well stop, because it's never going to happen. If it doesn't happen in the next few weeks, you can forget about it. Thomas Frank will suffer just the way every other manager has suffered, and we'll be back on here next year talking about a new manager and what could be possible. And honestly, it'll be so frustrating, because the fans deserve so much more. And I actually feel sorry for the players, because the players are crying out for help. I mean, I'm sure the players would love to see a big name walk through the door, because it automatically improves the standards. Everybody feels their position's under pressure. Everybody wants to, everyone's thinking, well, this is a Champions League team now. This isn't a team that's just going to hope to compete for a trophy. No, this is a team that's going to win a trophy this year. And a player coming in demands that kind of standard. And at the minute, it's we're not operating like a top club in the transfer market, and it's been happening far too often. And I know I probably sound very negative here, but it's just frustration and hurt because I really expected us to be a lot more ambitious this summer. And I know there's a few weeks left, but it really should have been sorted by now.
Can you imagine what Liverpool fans are feeling right now? They went on, they won the league last season, and then they've gone out and had an absolute stormer buying all these players coming in.
Bouncing off the walls.
In their minds, they must be thinking, we're going to dominate for the next 10 years. We're going to dominate. Forget about Man City. Forget about Arsenal. Forget about all the others. This is all us. This is our next, period of domination. They must be thinking that.
You're right.
And that's it. And we're just trying to compete to get into the top four at the minute. Never mind one leagues. We're just trying to compete to get into the top four.
Jesus says here, Chris, tell your mates to cheer up. It was only a friendly. Now, Rich, let's come to you.
Much about the result.
Because I think that a lot of us thought that, during pre-season, it's been a decent pre-season so far under Thomas Frank. I must say that we have lacked creativity throughout the whole of pre-season, because even when I was in Hong Kong, the training session where they split the team up, or the split the squad up and put them into two teams, even the practice session finished 0-0. The practice session in South Korea finished 1-0 to Tottenham, and it was Son that got the goal. So we haven't seen many goals. And under Ange Postecoglou, these practice sessions used to finish like 12-all. So it was like goals galore. So I think that we are expecting a very pragmatic approach under Thomas Frank. And I must say, every single time I've been, witnessing a Thomas Frank training session, I've been very, very impressed with him as a coach, and of course all of his coaching staff as well. But when you look, I think it was Gareth that mentioned it, when you look at, the Europa League final, Manchester United lost that game. Spurs, of course, won the Europa League. You would think that Spurs should really be pushing on, and it's Manchester United who are the ones who are now going out and showing real intent and ambition signing all of these players. Because let's face it, if the likes of Manchester United don't, they are seeing all of their rivals in the Premier League strengthen. And as Lee said, very rightly what Lee said, the planning from the likes of Liverpool, who were a million miles ahead of Spurs last season, how many more miles are they ahead of us now in terms of quality and depth?
Yeah, and they clearly are. And obviously they've done their work really early within the window, because they've identified the players that they want, and they're obviously going for them. And there's still obviously wanting players to strengthen their hold on the title. And obviously last year they didn't sign a player and they went on to win the title. And then obviously now they've seen that the players that maybe the Diaz's, where I think he was looking for a move anyway, he's gone, and they've got a player of that standard, if not even better, coming in. And that's the real difference, isn't it, between those top four sides? Even the Chelseas, the Arsenals, the Man Cities, the Liverpools, they've gone out and tried to get the best in their position, and we just can't compete with that. And from that game against Man United, I think for me it was fantastic, because we all kind of came together and the club came together. But what I'm hearing stuff, but there's no really actions behind it, board wise. That's what I'm saying. The board are like kind of saying, look, this is this, and the kind of the spoon feeding us like some of the information about the expectations of the club. Even Levy talking about Thomas Frank, spoon feeding that, but there's no real kind of, this is the plan for the next 2 or 3 years. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go out and we're going to really commit to buying the best players. Even though Levy did say within that interview that he did give recently with Gary Neville around kind of buying younger players and kind of investing in the future, which we want the results now. We want the momentum, and that's what's happened with the pre-season. We had some good momentum at the start of pre-season. Obviously, a couple of nice wins, North London derby, And now we're losing that momentum, not only through games, but also through the activity that we've had with regarding signings as well. And I think there needs to be a real kind of injection of new blood into the team to bring that energy. Because at the moment, bringing the Davis, 7 out of 10 player that we have in the team, I've said over the last 2 or 3 seasons, if you want to finish in the top 4, a player like Davis in your starting 11, does that get you there? No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. And whether you like him or not, he's a great servant and a great servant. Will he get you a top 4? No chance. And because he's still in the squad and still getting those contracts, that shows where Spurs are. A top 10 team at best. And that's a real struggle, because I felt that after the win, that maybe we'd go out for 2 or 3 real marquee signings, not the kind of 80, 90 million, maybe the 50, 60 million players that would really kind of put us in with a shout with being competitive. At the moment, we're going to really struggle with the schedule of playing, like I said, Wednesday, Sunday, but also imagine you playing like a Man City on a Wednesday and then playing a Man United on the Sunday, or you're playing a Barcelona on the Wednesday and you're playing a Man City on a Sunday. The squad will not be able to cope with that intensity. And then the fans would just get pissed with Thomas Frank's pragmatic style of play, like the let's hit them on the break. And I can't see the team moving forward without the squad to be able to implement a winning team. I can't see it.
Right, before we go any further, let's hear from Thomas Frank. This is what he made of the 4-0 defeat against Bayern Munich.
Thomas Frank is here with us. Thomas, a tough night for us today. What did you think of the way the game panned out?
Obviously playing a very good team tonight. Bayern, in my opinion, are one of the teams that probably are favourites to win the Champions League. They hit a good level. We didn't hit a good level. That's a bad combination. We will definitely learn from this one. I definitely got some answers that we will look into, and we will calmly reflect on it after the game now and look through it. Also, it seems like we lacked some energy somehow, which we need to find. No team can play without top energy.
We have 6 days until the Super Cup. What does the next week look like as we try to get ourselves ready for that?
No, we will 100% be ready for that game. I'm not in doubt of that. There's 6 days ahead. We will have a normal week for the first time in the last, 2 weeks or something like that. With everything just getting down, less travel, energize them, 3-4 good sessions, and then we'll be ready against PSG.
What do you think of pre-season as a whole?
I think as a whole, from start to now, I think overall positive. Of course, it was a negative performance today and a negative result, but overall there's been some really positive performances. The Arsenal one, pretty happy with a lot of bits in the Newcastle one. So that's what the bits we need to look into. Then it's about that consistency in the team, and the principle we want to get into the players that will, take a bit to get up to that level, consistent level we want to. But I'm not in doubt we'll get there.
We've signed João Palhinha on loan this week from Bayern Munich. What do you expect him to bring to our team?
No, I think today you got 45 good minutes into him. So I think that was very positive in many ways, and I'm sure he will help the team.
Any injury concerns coming out of this one, or pretty much as we were?
No, positive also today, no injuries.
And just finally, I know it's a negative one, but we lost James Maddison this week with the injury. How disappointing is that from your perspective?
Yeah, I think it's how can I say, disappointing for but mostly devastating for me, and mainly for matters that he's out. The team will miss him, and no doubt he will miss playing football.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Lee, let's come to you. I want to pick up Thomas Frank saying there that the team this evening, it looked like they lacked energy. Is that a concern at this point, going into a brand new season? And also, probably because they lacked a little bit of energy because of the amount of travelling that they've done. Because, of course, I've done this trip as well. I've been absolutely shattered, not knowing what day or even hour of the day it is. And I'm not even playing these matches. So I know that it can take its toll on all of the travelling, then the training, then the games, all of the other media commitments that they have. But, you know, the players, when a manager comes out and says they lack energy before the season's even started, is that a concern from your point of view?
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive concern, isn't it? I mean, I get. I mean, I'm sure you only went on EasyJet, Chris. I'm not sure you went on the big first class, stretching out beds and all that, getting mollycoddled like these players get. I mean, it's not like they travel on, Wizz Air or whatever. So I get it, right? It's difficult, isn't it, going from country to country? But that was the plan, right? They planned for that. It's in there. That's what they've got to do, right? So, and these are fit young men as well. They're not old codgers like me, or I won't say you, Chris, but what concerned me a little bit as well in Thomas Frank's comments there was the same old churned out comment of "we'll learn from this." I just fed up with hearing that. I just fed up with hearing that comment from every player every time there's a bad loss, every manager every time there's a poor game or whatever. That annoys me. It's just a platitude for a platitude's sake. So, but I do get it. He did say, travelling doesn't help and all that, and maybe on another day we only lose that game 2-0. But it's still a loss, and it's still a worry because they've still got to go out to Italy in 6 days' time. Are they gonna be okay to do that? Or are they gonna be too tired? Travelling on a first class flight. I don't know. So yeah, a bit worrying. But it is what it is, and it feels like I'm being really, really negative, and I don't mean to be, but you know what I mean. It just sounds like a lot of excuses for the fact that we really didn't have any game-changing players to be able to bring on. We haven't been able to rotate the players as well as you really want to. If you're rotating for a worse player, not necessarily a better player. And the best thing that came out of that game was that there was no injuries. I mean, we've had enough injuries to last us 10 seasons, let alone another season. So, difficult, really.
He touched on it earlier about James Maddison, and you mentioned it earlier as well that he's going to be out for the majority of the season. How much of a loss is that going to be to Tottenham? And of course, we haven't seen Destiny Udogie either, and of course Dominic Solanke. Apparently, Thomas Frank said after tonight's game that he's going to be back soon. But didn't give a date or a game. It's frustrating, isn't it? Because, the season that we had last year under Ange, the amount of injuries, and it just seems like we're in the same position again.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because I think a week or so ago, he was asked about Solanke, and he was said that he would be back for the Bayern game.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a worry, isn't it? And bear in mind, he played the whole season for Bournemouth without an injury. And yet he's come to us, and this has got to be his third injury since he's been with us. The guy from Japan's come, and he's injured before he's even played a game. And then you got Destiny Udogie, who was out, last season. It just feels like there's some underlying problem in terms of, our medical department or our training or our pitch or whatever it is that's going on that creates that. Maddison is a loss, right? The thing I would say though, and this is a little bit negative, is that Maddison, a lot of the games last season, he was like the invisible man, and so that I personally feel like we probably need an upgrade on Maddison. When he's good, he's good. He's a quality player, quality person as well. I love his attitude and how he comes across. But if he's going to be missing half the time or injured half the time, then you've got to address that. He can't be affording that situation, however good a player is. So, it'll be a miss, but he's only a miss if we don't replace him. And it's one that it's a position we've needed a backup for 2 seasons. So,
Can I ask you all 2 very, very quick questions? Just give me 2 very quick answers. Lee, let's start with you. So, are you confident that Spurs will go out in the next couple of weeks and get Thomas Frank the players that we need to be fighting on all fronts? So it's just a simple yes or no. And at the moment, if no one else came in this transfer window, where do you think Spurs would finish in the Premier League table?
So yes to the first question, and mid-table to the second.
Okay, Gareth.
Well, same players, but probably not the players we want. So no, and mid-table.
Rich.
Quick question, quick answer from me. I agree with the guys. Actually, I've said before that top 10 is where we'll be looking instead of pushing for a Champions League with the strategy we've got around recruitment at the moment. We need 5 or 6 players. Are we going to get 5 or 6 players that are going to make the difference?
Yeah.
I think it's more likely that somebody's going to go around to Gareth and give him 50p for his electricity to enlighten him a little bit. That's the more. If anybody does live near Gareth, just take a couple of 50p's for the meter, please, because he's struggling a little bit.
Terrible. Right, Gareth, let's come to you before you're completely gone. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about the squad depth here, because this was a starting 11 at the Allianz Arena this evening. Vicario, Porro, Romero, Van der Ven, Spence, Bentancur, Polinia, Sarr, Johnson, Richarlison, and Mohamed Kudus. And then the subs this evening: Kinski, Austin, Danso, Vuskovic, Davis, Gray, Basuma, Bergval, Odebear, and Tell. We've already spoken about the players out injured and that have been out injured for the last couple of weeks. So going into the Super Cup game next Wednesday in Italy, is this virtually the starting 11 that you think that Thomas Frank will be putting out?
I think that'll be the back 4. The only one, well, possibly 2. I think Polinia, I think Sarr will definitely play. The only one, maybe Bergval or Bentancur. That could change. I'm not sure, but that might be the most likely 3: Bentancur, Polinia, and Sarr, or Bergval goes on for one of them. And then I think Kudus will definitely play. Johnson, I'm not sure, because he may go with Odebear on the left, because we've heard that Thomas Frank's taking a real shine to him for whatever reason. And then Richarlison, because we're stuck guy probably. I mean, Chris, I made this point, I think, after the Luton preseason game on your show, that I wasn't really interested in what some of the players that were in the squad were doing, because it says they're all going to go out on loan anyway. And look, they're all away, and Vuskovic is supposed to be going as well. So, I wasn't really counting those players as part of the plan for this year. Don't get me wrong, there's some talented players in the academy, but they were never going to be part of this squad this year. So, I wasn't really concerned about, I wasn't really interested in what they were going to offer this year. Obviously, they're Spurs players, and I hope they do well out in loan, but for where we were, they were never going to be taken part. And you look at the situation we're in now, there's nothing really on that bench or on that starting 11 that's PSG's going to be worried about. They're not going to be looking at us thinking, how are we going to cope with a Spurs side? They'll be thinking, is this all they have? I'm sure a few weeks ago, PSG might have been thinking that Spurs might have been a wee bit more active and, give them a bit more to think about. So, I mean, that for me probably is the starting 11, Chris. That's the thing, and you look at that starting 11, that midfield, it's very defensive looking and lacking in creativity, but he's got no creativity really. Maybe Bergval, he may be a bit more creative but I think he'll go strong, because he probably needs to be, making sure we're rigid enough through the middle that we're not going to give up too many chances and try to keep it tight. And I think Richard made a great point about Thomas Frank. Yes, there is a bit of pragmatism about him, but he is a very adaptable manager, and he always kind of looks for weaknesses in opposition, and he weighs up our team, the opposition, to think, what way we'll approach the game. Will we play on the front foot? Will we play on the counter-attack? And that's one of his best traits. But as Richard pointed out, if we're playing a PSG, a Bayern Munich, a Man City, a Liverpool, an Arsenal, a Chelsea, Real Madrid, it would be a fool if he went toe-to-toe with those teams with what he's got. He's going to have to go with a pragmatic approach. And I think that was the criticism that was levelled at Irons, that, regardless of the opposition, he always played that attacking football. And, we're on the end of some heavy defeats. But, if we're losing games 1-0, playing defensive crap football, then the fans will be complaining about that too. So that's need a lot of support.
That's a good point though, Gareth, because this evening we did not look threatening at all in that final third. Yeah. Now, Richarlison up front, I know there's a lot of Richarlison fans out there, but I'm sorry, he is not good enough for Spurs and he needs to go, in my opinion. When I watch him in training, when I watch him in games, he should be banging in these goals left, right and centre, and he isn't. It's his job and he isn't doing it and hasn't done it for some time.
And in 4 weeks' time, so.
And if Spurs want to be going on to that next level, you need to replace players like this. Not good enough, in my opinion. Missed a chance this evening against Bayern Munich. It's like, how many chances can you have? And you've got to deliver.
And that's the problem, Chris. I think we're stuck because what Spurs probably want for Richarlison, teams maybe aren't prepared to pay. Do we cut our losses on him and just accept 15, 20 million? The problem being, you look at Darwin Núñez there, and he's a very similar player who misses a lot of chances. But Núñez doesn't get injured as much as Richarlison. He's a bit younger, so they've been able to get a half-decent fee from, I think it was 45 million with potential add-ons. We bite our hand off for that. But the problem with Richarlison is he's not just his reliability in front of goal, but his reliability with being actually fit. So I think we're stuck in terms of trying to shift him out the door. And apparently he's happy at Spurs. So, we've been in this situation with a number of players in the past, and we don't seem to learn our lesson from it, that, these injury-prone players, we really need to be avoiding signing them. He had an injury record at Everton, and we went and signed him anyway. And we've been, that's been proven to be a flawed move, because we're stuck with this fella now. And because of Solanke now being injured, Richarlison's going to be starting against PSG. And look, it's only a few more games away before he gets injured. So, and the way Solanke's been, and Lee's pointed it out, there's a good chance we could go, if we don't sign us on number 9, we could be sitting in a situation in 4 or 5 weeks' time where we've no fit striker at the club. And, even the one that you're speaking about, the second choice there, isn't really a great option either. So I think we need to really look at that, and we really need to go out and sign a top striker that's going to put the ball in the back of the net, because if you are going to be a bit more pragmatic, you aren't going to get as many opportunities in a game. So you need to be more clinical in front of goal. And this is the worry that I have, is Thomas Frank will get the blame if we are not playing an attractive style of football.
Yeah.
But a lot of these teams we've mentioned, Chris, it would be foolish to open up and play that basketball type football, because it would be well beat. And if Thomas Frank's not going to get the support, I, for one, will not be blaming him for setting up negatively, because we're just not at the level of these teams to compete.
Okay, so the question is, and I'll go to Richard on this. So the question is what Gareth said there about the pragmatic approach. So you lose a game like this evening, 4-0. It could have been so much more, as we've all discussed. So when you're going into that game against PSG next week, the Champions League winners, who absolutely battered Inter Milan 5-0 in that final, they were unbelievable that evening. So how on earth does Thomas Frank approach that game, Rich? Because we didn't look threatening in that final third. So is it all about just not conceding and playing quite boring football, if I can call it that?
Well, obviously, the Brazilian team, I forget what they're called, they beat, obviously, PSG in the Club World Cup 1-0, and they did that. They sat back and just hit them on the break. I think they had 2 chances all game. They scored 1 and they won 1-0. So that would obviously be probably the only ways to actually win a game such as that. Obviously, that's what we kind of did with, obviously, the cup final game, where it was a case of we were going to win the game, not entertain, and that was how we won. And then obviously we defended for our lives after that. I think against PSG, you can't go toe to toe with them at all. We haven't got anywhere near the team to be able to do that for 10 minutes, never mind 90. I think you have to be realistic and say that PSG as a team, maybe they're going to be a little bit rusty because of lack of pre-season, or or maybe they're going to be naive after watching a game like today and say that they're just going to turn us over 7 or 8-0, and then get them to try and break us down and show that resilience within the team and that resilience around that we've won a final actually playing that kind of resilient football. But it's not going to be pretty because any other way I can't see us winning with the players that we've got, and that's me being realistic. And like Gareth was saying as well, can you rely on some of the players that we've got in that attacking third to finish some of those opportunities? Richarlison, Johnson's been not fantastic with those opportunities. I think when you look at some of the opportunities Tell's had recently, he had that one-on-one, and I was like, if he would have scored that would have elevated his confidence. But it was like he was always going to miss that when he had that one-on-one. I think he should have took it early and not let the keeper reset. PSG game is going to be one of those games where maybe Spurs fans that are going, such as yourself, Chris, won't have that same confidence that you went into the game against Man United. But it's more as long as we come out of the game with a positive kind of result for the team, whether that's I always want the team to win, and I always think that Spurs have got a chance. But against a PSG team with so many creative, intelligent players, are we going to have the opportunities to be able to beat a team like that? The only way, maybe with an aging centre back like Marquinhos, maybe we have a couple of chances there, but I'm not sure.
Right, what we'll do now is we'll just go through the 4 goals that we conceded, and then we'll finish with score predictions and thoughts ahead of the PSG game. Rich, let's talk about the first goal that we conceded. Of course, former Tottenham Hotspur star, Harry Kane, does it again. Typical Harry Kane finish. What did you make of it?
Was that you cheering then as well? Was that you with your hands up? I'm sure that was you with your cheap Fitbit. Was that you?
That was definitely not me, and I can confirm I'm not wearing any Fitbit right now.
Sponsored, Chris Cowlin, sponsored by Fitbit.
Not when I've been eating chips while you lot have been talking.
Obviously, the goal was offside. It was offside, and the referee, I think, was still in the opposite 6-yard box. He was miles off. He didn't have a clue. I think he was clapping when he actually scored as well. After that, and obviously given the penalty decision, I think it was obviously it's a great finish, but offside. It reminded me quite a bit of that kind of running off the defenders when he played for us, and then having that opportunity. It reminded me a lot of some of the goals that he scored for us. Great finish, but offside.
Does it still feel weird for you, Rich, that Harry Kane plays against us and not for us?
It was interesting because you're saying that, because I saw obviously we all saw recently the Sonny kind of emotional kind of I'm leaving the club, and then somebody reposted the Harry Kane one when he's at the golf club going, "Oh, I'm going now. Yeah, it's a hard decision." Yeah, he didn't really give a fuck really. Where Sonny clearly emotionally very attached to not only the team but also the club, been there for 10 years. Sonny and Harry obviously clearly 2 different characters, and I don't know. I think clearly I miss kind of Harry within the team, and you miss somebody like that, clearly a world-class player. But I think because of how he left as well, I don't know. For me, it was like a little bit like I saw him play today, and I was like, yeah, it's obviously we had him very similar to like Gareth Bale. He like went obviously to Madrid. We lost that kind of out of the team, but I don't know. There was just I think it's really important to me how people leave a situation, and I think he left a little bit of a bad taste when how he left.
Yeah.
And Sonny, I think, is always going to be in the hearts of the fans because of that kind of emotional connection. Obviously, his last real act as a captain was obviously the final. Obviously, the games that he played in pre-season, I don't think he was already going somewhere else at that point, and it was like contractual kind of requirements he had to play. But definitely a difference. And I think today it just kind of, I don't know, it just seemed a long time since Harry Kane was in the team.
Part of me just feels like, how on earth have we allowed this to happen? Harry Kane and Heung-min Son to leave the football club.
Even through COVID, remember we had Bale came back, Sonny and Harry up front. You think those three players up front, at the time, Harry and Sonny at the top of their game, Bale coming back. And I think was it 12, 13 goals that season? And some of them were worldies. Like, some of them worldies. Like, I know some people think it's a bit of a waste, but some of them are worldies. And then you go from that front three to now our front three. There's a bit of a difference, isn't there? It's like Arsenal and Charlton. That kind of difference. Like, massive. And like, just like creativity, goals, like even how the players act. Like, I've talked to you, Chris, many times about players in the tunnel. Like that focus, that every game's about 3 points, every game's about winning.
Yeah.
At the moment, I'm kind of going, some of the players are in awe to be a part of the team. Some of the players just don't realise what it should be like to wear the badge on the shirt and give everything. Like, again, suddenly getting criticism last season and the season before about some of the games, but he always was the player that'd be on his knees that's given everything. And you can never criticise him for that. He did give his all. And that's why, for me, I think he is a true legend. He has given a lot. I think over the last 5 or 10 seasons, can you think of other players that have really committed to the side like he has? Some of them have gone, like Harry went, didn't he, when he could have stayed. And I think for me, that's the thing that we will miss going into next season. If we do not sign somebody of the calibre, a world-class player for the squad, we need players like that. We haven't got them. Leaders, we need leaders in the team. Who's Thomas Frank going to pick as his captain? That is going to be very interesting. If it's Ben Davies, Jesus Christ.
Do you know what, Rich? The worrying thing is the amount of years that you've been coming on this podcast and you've been saying that season by season.
I know. And that's where you kind of, as a team, whatever team it is, like you say, Lee, you're obviously associated to a big corporate brand yourself. You need to have characters within that team. You need to have leaders. You need to have leadership opportunities for everybody in the team, and people need to step up and take those opportunities. I feel that there's a lot of passengers on the Tottenham Hotspur bus at the moment, and there's not many drivers, and that's a real problem. And not the kind of drivers that Gareth Bale used to use either. Proper drivers that people like kind of listened to. Harry Kane was never a loud leader, but he scored the goals. That's it. That's performance. You see it in the performance, and that's what's really important. Where now we're really struggling for anybody in the team that's going to show. I think that's the reason why I'm kind of going like Mohamed Kudus has come in the team from West Ham, and then all of a sudden is a shining light as a team, and I'm going, this is disappointing because like all the other players should be going, actually, I need to up my game here. Somebody's come in from a team that's so-called like not as kind of as ambitious as us, has come in and he's now become our best player.
Yeah. Lee, let's come to you. What did you make of the first goal? And also, what did you make of the penalty miss from Harry Kane 15 minutes in? Because, of course, João Palhinha conceded the penalty. And also, what did you make of his performance?
So in terms of the first goal, it was a classic Harry Kane goal, was it? Took it brilliantly and put it in the far corner, and there was just nothing the keeper could do about it. But as I said right at the beginning of the show, he was offside, and if there'd been VAR, it would have been chalked off. In terms of the penalty, again, I didn't think it was a penalty. To be honest with you, it looked very much to me like Palhinha had pulled out. Like he went to go for the ball, it looked to me like he pulled out, and the player made the most of it. And so for me, again, I thought he was a bit unlucky there to get that. And Harry missing it was like, justice in my mind. I just thought, it shouldn't have been a penalty in the first place. And the first one was offside. So I thought that was a little bit of luck. And I thought, well, maybe we're going to ride our luck a little bit here. And how wrong was I? But in terms of Polini, I thought he had a decent first 45 minutes. I thought he worked quite hard and stuff, brought something to the team. It's his first game, right? He's probably not really even trained with us properly yet. So it'll be interesting to see how he kind of gets on. For me, it's been a position that we've needed for a while, someone who can come in and just kind of steady the ship and give us that little bit of defensive work in that midfield. Because all too often last season, teams were just going straight down the middle and just cutting us out and everything. So I didn't think he did too badly. But like I say, it's early days, isn't it? You've got to give the guy a chance to get in. And if he's not been playing too much for Bayern Munich anyway, he's probably got to get up to the right sort of fitness levels and everything else. So, for me, I think give him time. Let's see how he gets on. It makes sense to me. Loan him, see how he fits in, see how he comes on. Is he going to be good enough? Is he what we really need? Or is he a stopgap for something better at the end of the season or January or whatever? I don't know. But or are we saving the money for these 3 big signings that we're going to make before next week? I don't know. Could be.
Lee, what did you make of the match officials today? Because there were a lot of complaints, particularly from Christian Romero at half-time alongside Pedro Porro and Richarlison. And then also at full-time, Romero went over to the referee and the match officials clearly not happy. You don't normally see this in a pre-season friendly. So what did you make of the officials overall?
To be honest with you, I thought they were just a bit lazy. I think they took it as a pre-season friendly and weren't too bothered about it. Like I say, there's no way it was the first goal was onside. There's no way it was a penalty. And I think they kind of relying on VAR to get them out of jail a lot of these times. For Romero to be arguing with the ref, I thought was a bit stupid because he got himself a yellow card, which was clearly a yellow card because he was pulling Harry Kane back. And then the next time he went into him and took him out again, he could have got himself sent off in a pre-season friendly, in my view. So for him kind of protesting the way he did, I thought was a bit, a bit silly, to be honest with you. Like I say, I just thought the officiating wasn't particularly good. Thought it was a bit lazy and like, it's a pre-season friendly. It doesn't really matter, and that's what I guess they were probably more concerned about, some of the sort of silly little kind of niggles and stuff. But yeah,
Gareth, happy that Christian Romero's new club captain now, Heung-min Son, is left.
Well, that looks to be that way, doesn't it? And has that been confirmed officially?
I don't think it needs to be confirmed, although it will be confirmed. But I don't think it needs to be, does it?
Well, no, it looks that way. Again, that's one concern that the lads have mentioned there is he's reckless at times. Can be a liability. We know from the Europa League final how good a player he can be. But I don't know I've always debated, Chris, especially the last year, if Romero truly wants to be here. He'll turn it on in big games and he'll turn it on when it matters, maybe. But it seems to have a lot of lapses in concentration. And look, I don't know. I think if Atletico had put the money up, he probably would have wanted to leave. So look, maybe the manager that way. But I want to see real committed Romero this season. Too many times last year, too many times he was a liability with his ball watching, lack of concentration. Like we need him to be at his best if he's going to be the captain. He needs to set an example. I love the aggression and I love the way he'll be like a pantomime villain at times. You need that in your squad, but there's a line, and as long as he doesn't get himself sent off, then I don't have an issue with it. But I don't want to see anything for that. He's an experienced defender now. You know what I mean? He's a lot of years internationally, a lot of years in the Premier League, knows what the league's about, and he's got a great centre for Van de Ven too. If he can take that. So it'll be interesting to see if the captain's on will bring a reaction to Romero and hopefully get back to the level he was at a couple of years ago. Because I thought in the final he was unbelievable in the final. Him and Van de Ven were class. If you get that level of performance, and we're going to need that level of performance on Wednesday, because like the lad says, it's going to be backs against the wall. No one's expecting to go out there, really have too many periods of possession. It's going to be 2 big back four, really organised, not giving away any kicks. You know, making PSG frustrated, and then gaps that open up if they give the ball away. Can we exploit them? And that'll be where the game's won and lost for us. You know, we're going to need PSG to be off it, which there's probably a good chance they will be because they haven't been training. And can we take advantage of that? But in regards to Romero, I think he's probably the best option that we've got, because Richard, like Richard pointed out, there's very few drivers on this bus. There's a lot of passengers, and there's a real, and we've said this before, Chris, a real lack of experience, and I mean that's cost us at times last year. You know, Paulina's come on. You know, he's an experienced player, but you know, if we're going down the route of more 20-year-olds with a lack of European football, I'm sorry, but that's just not thought of at this level. We need proven Champions League, Premier League quality who are ready to come on and show some of these younger lads, you know, what these kind of seasons are all about.
Gareth, let's stay with you. Let's get your thoughts on the second goal that we conceded. Of course, Coman scoring in the 61st minute. I've got to say that they were good finishes from Bayern Munich tonight.
Well, I mean, you think about the Kane goal, and that's the difference between Harry's goal, Chris, and some of our finishing lately. Is Harry always seemed to control. The best strikers are always in control. They know exactly what they're going to do. You can, you know, made our defenders look silly, even though it was offside. You know, we've seen Harry do that before in the past. He always seems to be in control of what he's doing. And you talked about some of the finishes there. The second, third, and fourth goals were all brilliant strikes with real quality. And that's the worry at the minute for us, Chris, is, you know, you mentioned Garrison there. Richard mentioned Matisse Hell, you know, the one against Newcastle. You know, these players don't look like they can score a goal. And that is a real worry. I don't think Richarlison has got any confidence in front of goal. I don't think Matisse Hell's got any confidence in front of goal. And you need players ready to seize opportunities. I mean, if we get more than 2 or 3 chances against PSG, I'll be shocked, because I expect us to be under siege for a lot of the game. So we're going to need to be clinical in those areas. And, you know, if you're going to be a counter-attacking team as well, you need to have a lot of quality in the final third. And at the minute, I kind of looked at our team in the final last year, and I looked at United's team, and I went, do you know what? I think we're full of superstars, but we've got a better front three than them. But United go out and sign 3 top forwards, and I'm looking at our front three now going, well, United would take any of our players. It's completely flipped. And that's the danger. And we spoke about it earlier on, Chris, about if the next few weeks doesn't go well, we're going to be left behind. And not just left behind in terms of top 4, left behind in case of top 6, top 7, top 8.
Rich, what did you make of goals 3 and 4 that we conceded? Of course, Carl scoring against Spurs in the 74th minute, and then QC Assar scoring in the 80th minute. They like I said earlier, there were some fantastic finishes against Tottenham tonight.
Yeah, but you just look at like the finishing itself. He's just standing still. He kind of just comes onto his right foot, and he's just putting it in the corner, isn't he? There's no real pressure on the ball. Like lots of people standing off. Like it's no kind of. It's about the pressure before the ball ever comes to him. Like look at the players now standing off the ball. It's like that should be 3 of them. 3 of them. Nobody pressuring that ball at all. Unbelievable. Yes, clearly it's a good finish, but you expect that with obviously playing for Bayern Munich. You expect those kind of finishes within the team. Have we got those finishes within our team? No, I've not seen them anyway. I've not seen the evidence that I think the finishes that you would say that we've got in the team are the ones that are out injured. There's Kulusevski and Maddison. They're the ones that would finish like those. And the real difference is obviously the quality that they've got within the team. Obviously, quality, the execution. Clearly, they had a plan to really hit us on on the break and then kind of just overwhelm us because we weren't pushing the ball. And
Rich, do you think that the players were thinking about Wednesday? Because you see some of them, there's a couple of duels we lost there and they weren't really putting any like 50-50 tackles or rushing out the block. Do you think there was a feeling of don't want to get injured for next week and kind of going through the motions in the game when Bayern Munich were ahead, But again, that's not an excuse, is it?
No, it's not an excuse for sure. And they're using it as a little bit of a warm-up game for that. It's ridiculous because you got pummeled. You'd rather go into the game with being competitive and actually going, yes, that really worked. Maybe we lost 1 or 2-0, but we kind of had phases where we kind of were in control of the ball and we used the ball well. We got some good crosses in and we just didn't have the result that we wanted. But looking from Thomas Frank's point of view, what positives apart from no injuries did he get out of the game? And at that point, what's the point of playing if you've not actually learned anything about your players?
Well, he did say that he learned a lot from the game, so I'm hoping he's banging Daniel Levy's door first thing tomorrow when he gets back.
I would 100% expect that. I think there's no. When I watched that game today, I was thinking about the positives that I learned, and apart from Mohamed Kudus, like I said, I was looking for some kind of spark from some of those players, and they looked like the players when they came off the pitch onto the bench. I'm looking at our midfield; they looked smashed. Yeah, they looked dejected. They looked clueless, and that's in pre-season. And we talk about obviously how important pre-season is for us this year. Pre-season is important because we've got that PSG game, which isn't a friendly. That's for a cup. You're building towards that. We should have been getting our business done early and then building towards that PSG game.
Yeah. Right, lastly, let's get your thoughts ahead of the PSG game in just 6 days' time. Lee, let's get a score prediction from you if we can. And also feel free to give us a predicted lineup if you'd like to.
In terms of the predicted lineup, I think it'll be pretty much what we see today, to be honest with you, because I don't think he has a lot of other options. I think the only thing that might change, if Solanke is back, then he comes in ahead of Richie for sure, because he's just, he's got to go, right? And the other one I think may come in, maybe Odebear, because I know there's been a lot spoken about Frank being impressed with him. So maybe that comes in, but we'll see. In terms of score prediction, I really don't want to predict us to lose. I really don't. Not this early in the season before it's even kicked off. So I'm going to go for a very pragmatic sit back, take all the pressure, and hit him on the break for a 1-0 win.
A 1-0 win.
Yeah. Why not?
Okay.
I don't believe it, but that's what I'm saying.
What do you think, Gareth?
Well, look, I think we will be lying if we sat here. If PSG had a full pre-season, I don't even think it would be a contest, to be honest. And that's not to be disrespectful to the team, but I don't think it would be a contest. I think it would be far too strong for us. It would be, Van de Ven's the only player that would be on that team. I think it would be 10-1 in terms of. It will be easy to make decisions based on if you're in a combined 11. I think the fact that PSG have been on the beach the last few weeks, they're going to be rusty. No, they're not going to be able to turn it on like they did in the final against Inter Milan. And you could even see against Chelsea, they were kind of running out of steam at the end of it. They've had a long, tough season there. So they might be feeling the effects of it. So we might be catching them at the so-called perfect. If there's ever a time to catch PSG, this might be it. But I'm going to... Well, let's finish on a positive. We're going to forget the last hour and 39 minutes and 30 seconds. And we're going to say, I'm going to agree with Lee, we'll soak up the pressure. Hopefully it's not a bombardment, because I think if you're bombarded, it's going to be very difficult to keep mind. It's so much quality. But I'm hoping it's a lackluster PSG where they've got a lot of the ball but not really doing anything with it. And then from a counter-attack, or we looked dangerous from set pieces against Arsenal. If we can maybe nick a set piece goal, and we're all shouting it's the second European trophy at the end. And then we can get down to business in the transfer market once we won that cup. So I'm going to go Lee. I'm going to say it's going to be a 1-0 Spurs 1, and it's going to be another European trophy. Well, I'm going to the game. I mean, if I don't believe it can win, I may as well just rip up my boarding pass now.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, you did message me earlier and say it's all about the beer next week now.
I did.
So yeah, Rich, what are you thinking?
It's all about the Italian beer. Yeah, enjoy the beer, lads. Anyway, it'd be great beer. That's what I'm saying. I'm not committing anything towards the result. Apart from just enjoy yourself. Just go and enjoy yourself, guys. That's it. Just have a great time.
What's your score prediction, Rich?
Watch the game. Have some beers. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. I would not. Look, I'd love Spurs to win. But do I see it happening? No, not at all. The hope would probably be, like Lee said, a 1-0. And Gareth said 1-0. I cannot see that. I cannot see that at all. But I'm not gonna say that Spurs are gonna lose in a final. No chance. So I'm not gonna commit. Sorry, I'm not gonna. Just enjoy the beers, guys.
You're not giving a prediction?
I'm not. I can't, man. I can't because what my head's saying is that we're gonna get pummeled, and my heart's saying that we're gonna nick a win.
If PSG had a pre-season, I don't think it would be a competitive game. I think it would be an absolute annihilation. But the fact that they're going to be, like me being a coach, I know how teams come back after they've had a break, and they are going to be rusty. You'll find that maybe they're misplacing passes and their energy mightn't be as high, and it will make it a bit of a leveler. And we just need to hope we can take advantage of it.
I don't know, man. I think even if PSG had Gazza's mate, 5 bellies in the back, we still wouldn't beat them. You know what I mean? So I'm sorry, but I'm not seeing it. I'd love somebody to tell me and show me, paint that picture of how Spurs are going to beat PSG. But I ain't seeing that at the moment.
Who's painting the picture? Lee,
Go on, Chris. You know what, Chris? You always do this. You're like, "Go, what's the result then?" But then you never say, "What's the result?"
What's your prediction, Chris? And we're not talking about Italian beers.
Yeah.
Well, I've already said that these teams are miles ahead of Tottenham right now, and I'm worried about that game next week, I must say. But
I told you to do this. I know this.
We all know how Tottenham can do things. It would be so Spurs to beat PSG, the Champions League winners, and then face Burnley, and then we lose 1-0 at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. This is just Tottenham, isn't it? But you never ever know.
Would you? I think everyone would take that, but I think if we beat PSG and lose to Burnley, people will be happy.
Of course.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very tough.
Apart from Levy, because he wants to win on all fronts.
Do you know what, Rich? I'll give you a score prediction, Rich. I think Thomas Frank will go so defensive. He'll go so defensive, having just been beaten like we have been this evening against Bayern. I think the score will end 0-0, and I think it will go to penalties.
I'll take that now.
There you go, Rich. I've given you a score prediction. What's yours?
No, you haven't. You give me a result then.
Spurs win 4-3 on penalties.
Okay. All right then. I'll take that. It's not going to happen, but I'll take it.
You agree?
Yeah, I'll take that. I'll buy those beers if that happens.
Rich, thanks so much for joining us this evening. Always such a great guest. Always such great input. Talking about trophies, tell us about your latest trophies and your latest medals. Where have you been? What have you been up to?
I've come back from Zimbabwe. I ran the Victoria Marathon there. I'm actually quite close to you, Gareth. I'm in Isle of Man this weekend. So I'm over there running the Isle of Man Marathon, and then I'll be in Iceland the week after that. So it's lots of. I've got 8 marathons in 15 weeks to make my 20 this year. So crazy, I know, but it's how it's fallen, unfortunately. And I'm just running all over the world: Australia, Europe, America. I've been to Africa. So, but it's been awesome. Power sports are obviously a really important thing for everybody, mental health, physical health wise.
Yeah,
obviously a lot of people that come on this show obviously thank Chris for obviously the outpouring of kind of support that he gives, and it's a great platform, isn't it, to be able to talk about the team that we love and also kind of rant and kind of support the team. But yeah, sport's been a massive input for me, and it's been great. But yeah, hopefully I've finished the Isle of Man marathon and I'm ready to watch the PSG game the week after.
Well, best of luck with those remaining marathons, Rich. Yeah. And Lee, thank you so much for joining us. When's your next marathon?
Mate, I haven't. There's no way I could eat 20 marathons. Not a chance. Not a chance, mate.
No, they're Snickers now, not marathons.
Oh, okay.
And have been for many years. Yeah.
Can I just say this, right? I don't run for nobody. If there was a zombie apocalypse, if I was a zombie apocalypse, I would be the best zombie killer or the first zombie meal, because I wouldn't run from them.
Lee, tell everyone about your channel. Where can they find you? What can they expect from you?
Yeah, so every Friday I do a weekly Tottenham news review for you, Mr. Cowlin. So that'll be my mission tomorrow. And if anyone wants to come and look at me, I'm a Lee the Dorset Spur on YouTube. You'll find me there. And thanks for all the comments about my lovely drapes. They're handmade by my wife. She'll be real chuffed that people are so impressed with them because they are very, very nice. Thank you very much.
Lee, thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon. And Gareth, I will see you in Italy next week. But where can people find you in the meantime?
Well, that's that. I'm just going to pop round to the shop to get some electric here. No.
Why are you in the dark?
I don't know. It was late when we started. Sure, podcasts they go on for that long. The seasons change, I think, sometimes.
Yeah. You do have a light switch by your hand, I take it, yeah?
Yeah, I do, yeah. Laziness, isn't it? But no, you can find me on at Spurs Hotspur, always ranting and raving about Spurs, good or bad. But as you say, I'm quite a regular on your show, Chris. I think I'll be doing a show as well for you as well. For the new season ahead. We'll probably get a chat about that in Italy. But anyone that wants to follow me socials will see plenty of stuff in Italy. Building up the Super Cup and obviously being in the stadium, and look, whatever we see tonight, it's all positive when we step foot on the Italy on Monday and we go for the result and we deal with the consequences if there's consequences after. But for me, it's always about believing you can win. And you know what, seeing Bilbao, a lot of people didn't believe, but I think I said to you, Chris, 1-0 on the podcast or on the prediction, and it happened. So maybe we're going to go for 2 1-0 wins, 2 European Cups. And who knows? We're back in the big time, baby.
I get Gareth's point and his positivity, but that PSG game next week is going to be very different to the Manchester United side that we faced in Bilbao on the 21st of May. But fingers crossed. Anyway, Lee, Gareth, Rich, thanks so much for all of your input this evening. It's never easy talking about a defeat, even if it is pre-season, but they were excellent opposition this evening. But let's hope that Spurs can get back to winning ways very soon against PSG next week. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. And we will see you next Wednesday after the PSG game. Come on, you Spurs.